She's just on her period. We've all heard someone say it. Usually after a woman gets angry, starts crying, or suddenly becomes more emotional, as if periods are simply an excuse for mood swings. But what if that sentence is one of the biggest misconceptions about the female brain? Because here's something fascinating. Scientists have discovered that during certain phases of the menstrual cycle, the brain itself can process emotions differently. Not because women suddenly become irrational, but because the brain may temporarily respond differently to emotional information. Which raises a much bigger question. Why do some women cry during their periods while others don't? If hormones are the answer, then shouldn't every woman experience exactly the same thing? But they don't. Some women barely notice any emotional changes. Others suddenly cry over a sad movie they've watched 10 times before. A tiny argument feels overwhelming. Even a simple one-word text like, okay, can suddenly feel cold or hurtful. Why? For years, scientists believed the answer was simple: hormones. During the menstrual cycle, two major hormones, estrogen and progesterone, rise and fall naturally. So people assume that when hormones changed, moods changed. Case closed. Except research kept revealing something strange. Scientists found that two women could have very similar hormone levels, yet completely different emotional experiences. One might go through her entire period feeling almost normal. The other might suddenly feel emotionally exhausted, more sensitive, or cry without fully understanding why. Same hormones, completely different experience. That discovery changed everything. Today, many researchers believe the real question isn't how much do the hormones change, it's how does the brain respond to those hormonal changes. In other words, the hormones may not be the entire story. The brain's sensitivity to those hormones might matter even more. Think about sunlight. Two people stand outside under the exact same sun. One gets a tan, the other gets sunburnt in just a few minutes. The sunlight didn't change. Their body's response did. Scientists now think something similar may happen inside the brain. The hormonal changes are completely normal, but every brain responds to them a little differently. And that's where the mystery really begins. Because if hormones aren't directly creating sadness, what is? The answer may lie in one small part of the brain that's responsible for deciding what deserves your emotional attention. That tiny structure is called the amygdala. It's only about the size of an almond, yet it's one of the brain's most important emotional centers. Think of it as your brain's alarm system. Every second it's deciding, how important is this? Should I worry? How strongly should I react? Researchers using brain scans have found that during certain phases of the menstrual cycle, the amygdala and other emotion-related brain regions can respond differently. The world outside doesn't change, but your brain's emotional filter can. Imagine watching the same sad movie you've seen 10 times before. Nothing in the movie changed, yet this time you suddenly start crying. Or your partner replies with just one word, okay. On most days, you'd ignore it. Today, your brain starts asking, why was it so short? Are they upset? The message didn't change. Your interpretation did. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. When your brain enters an emotional state, it naturally starts searching for evidence that supports that feeling. If you're already sad, everything suddenly seems more disappointing. If you're anxious, everything feels more threatening. Now, add another piece of the puzzle: serotonin. It's often called the happy chemical, but that's not completely true. Serotonin helps regulate mood, emotional stability, sleep, and how the brain responds to stress. Hormonal changes during the menstrual cycle can influence the system in some women. That's one reason why women with PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, often improve with treatments that affect serotonin. Then there's something we rarely think about: pain. Cramps, headaches, back pain. Your brain is constantly processing those signals. At the same time, many women also experience poorer sleep before or during their period, and poor sleep alone can make anyone more emotionally reactive.
Now add everything together. Hormonal changes, a brain that's more sensitive to those changes, physical pain, poor sleep, daily stress. Individually, none of these has to be overwhelming. Together, they can make emotions feel much stronger. But here's the most important fact. Not every woman experiences this. Some women notice almost no mood changes, others experience only mild symptoms, and some develop PMDD, a real medical condition that can seriously affect everyday life. So when someone says she's just on her period, science gives a very different answer. Periods don't suddenly change who a woman is. They can temporarily change how her brain processes emotions, and that's a huge difference. So the next time a woman in your life seems more emotional during her period, don't rush to judge her. Ask if she's okay. Listen, be patient, because sometimes the strongest thing a man can do isn't trying to fix her emotions, it's simply making sure she doesn't have to face them alone. Science has one explanation, but real life doesn't always feel like science. Women, does this happen to you? Men, have you ever misunderstood someone because of this? Let's hear both sides in the comments.